Hey guys, BJ the Brave here, back with some more Warpforge content for you. And today I'm actually going to be talking about the game's most overpowered cards right now. Now, I did think about whether to include the defense and offense cards, and I decided not to bother doing that. Now, there are a few warlords in here. I have included those. And, you know, this is just a bit of fun, so take it with a pinch of salt. Let me know in the comments if there's any you disagree with or if there's any key ones that you think that I have missed. But this should be quite helpful for new players coming into the game and a bit of fun for us veterans as well, just to kind of compare notes on what we think are the really kind of strong busted cards. Alright, now, let's have a look. Now, I did originally think I was going to try and keep this to a top 10 list or something like that. I was trying to limit the numbers, and in the end, I just thought, do you know what? Forget the number. I'm just going to go with what I think are the most broken cards. Now, overall, I have to say, I think the game's in a good state, and compared to other CCGs that I've played, I don't actually think there are that many broken cards, right? So, what I'm trying to show in this video is the cards that are really, really powerful. Sorry, I've got a bit of cold at the minute, so I'm struggling a bit. But I'm trying to show the cards that are really, really powerful, but I don't necessarily think many of these are like breaking the game right now. They're just very, very, very strong. So yeah, let's jump in and have a look. Now, when it comes to the Space Marines, there is literally one card that I would put in there, and the artwork on this is a little bit old, but the Primus Reaver has actually got a buff to 3 health recently, and I would say that this is... Oh, I would actually say... if I just... Yeah, here we go. I would actually say that the Reaver is the one Space Marine card for me that is worthy of this list. And honestly, I'm not even 100% sure it deserves to be on this list. It's a very, very strong 2-drop flanker. It can often clear an early drop and still stick around. But I really think that it was between this and Humanity's Shield were the only ones that I even considered. I don't think there are many very OP cards. The old Tactical Insight would have definitely been in there, as would have the old Predator. But in the current meta, I actually just don't really think that the Ultramarines really have many cards I would consider OP. So next, let's move on to the darker brethren of the Ultramarines, the Chaos Space Marines. Now, the Venom Crawler is most definitely one of the most OP cards in the game. As a 6-drop, this card just has everything you want in terms of stats. Very, very powerful, can't be cheated. It's got armor as well, making it quite durable. And it plays really nicely with its ability, because this ability is one where you want the unit to stick around on board, right? So if this thing starts playing dart packs on it and surviving, it's just insane. And making your stratagems cost 1 less means that you can get a lot of your kind of 1-drop Abdon's Chosen's for free, or even like Abdon's Hero Power, getting it for 1. So it really starts to ramp up the value. So the Venom Crawler is in. Now, speaking of which, I've also gone for Abaddon the Despoiler, because again, I think Abaddon is one of the warlords that I would put in the kind of OP category. I think he's super, super strong, and yeah, I actually think that they're the only two for me actually in the Chaos. I think Spawndom comes very, very close. Yeah, Spawndom comes very, very close. But I think Abaddon's just kind of just a consistent guarantee of having, being able to put a dart pack. And dart packs are very powerful. They're all pretty good, right? So the guarantee of having it is just superb. Now, when it comes to the Tyranids, I think the Neuraloid is the first OP card. One of the things about Synapse is it is the way that Tyranids cheat tempo, right? If you can pay, let's say, 2 energy for a buff that most factions would pay 2 energy for, if you can put that on a Synapse and 3 units benefit, you've essentially got 3 for the price of 1. So that's a massive tempo advantage that you gain. A Neuraloid enables that Synapse for free. It costs 0. So I think because of that, like the potential tempo swing for Neuraloid is just absolutely massive. Combines so well with things like Enhanced Organism. And not to mention you can use it on like Ravenous Hunter as well. Now, so we'll put this here. And my next one for the Tyranids is the Infinite Biomorphologies. This card used to cost 3 energy, and it was like an okay card. It was sort of on the fence, but at 2 energy, it's just busted. It's so good. It's in every single Tyranid deck. It doesn't matter what archetype you're playing, and it's just almost always brilliant. Like even when I've had hands where I've sort of got like 1 or 2 troops, it's still good. Like it's not OP when you've got those situations, but it's still really good. Yeah, Infinite Biomorphologies is probably like the first legendary I'd craft these days in Tyranids. And if it isn't that, it's this next one, Ravenous Hunter. It has received a nerf since those who have been playing since start of early access. It used to be even better, giving +1 strength, but it doesn't need it. Like just being able to give blood first in a faction that has Synapse is just so broken still. Like this is a card that is close to being broken. Like you have certain board states where it's just so good, and the fact that you can play this on and Swarmlord can benefit from it, so that Swarmlord can attack twice as well as your units, super good. Now, I spent a bit of time with my teammates from my alliance trying to decide on which cards to put in this list. And we kind of all agreed on many of them, but the one that I felt strongly about that they didn't necessarily put in there was Encircled Prey. I think Encircled Prey is so busted. I can remember speaking to Shimatsu, who he hasn't played the game for a while, but he was known as like the best Tyranny player, and he used to say this is the best card in the faction. And I kind of, I don't know if I agree that it's the very best, but it's definitely up there. Like 1 energy to put something in stealth is pretty good in any faction. Like that's pretty good. Again though, in a faction where you can Synapse, I had it just tonight where a guy played 3 units down, playing this and hiding 3 units for 1 energy. I mean that just wins the game. Like that is, it's so hard for your opponent to interact with. Often they can't, and it's just OP. It's overpowered. When your opponent can't do anything to your board, that's OP. So I think that's in there. Quite a few for the Tyranids. I've actually gone and got Swarmlord himself and put him in here. I think he deserves a mention. He's the only Warlord that can do 3 damage without spending any energy. That's the best way of thinking about Swarmlord. Not only does he have 40 health, making him a beast, but he actually has 3 attack for no energy cost. No other Warlord can do that, and that in itself, given that you can't remove a Warlord until he dies, means you've got a tempo advantage from the start, right? Yes, he struggles with flyers, that's the downside, but you know, most units aren't flyers, and being able to deal 3 damage compared to 2, or even in a straight race with your opponent, that can add up. So Swarmlord's just an absolute beast, and he's just been near the top of the meta like forever. Now onto the Necrons. It's a bit like the Space Marine story. I did think about Implacable Conqueror as a potential, because having a mana cheat for the rest of the game would be excellent. However, I think it's very close to making this list, but not quite there yet. I think if we start to see some more meta Necron decks with that in, then I'll add. It might make it to this list eventually, but right now the Tomb World is the one, guys. Like, you've just got to think about what the value is. A good control deck would probably mean that when you Tomb World, you're going to get something like 4 5E drops or more. Like, you can very easily get 20 energy worth of troops coming back. And that can include flankers so that they can attack straight away. It can include vanguards like Lich Guard. So Tomb World is just an absolute powerhouse, and the amount of times you'll just play this game and the opponent just concedes, like, or even if they don't, it's game over when you play it, and that's what makes it an OP card. Now, the Sisters of Battle, or the Adeptus Sororitas, we've got the Beacon of Faith, and the Beacon of Faith is probably the best, outside of like a Synapse enabling thing, it's probably the best like strat buff in the game. Like, it's so overpowered for 2 energy, it's unbelievable, and especially when you've got a meta around Junith that can put lots of bodies down. This is actually, again, the artwork's quite old because I've taken it from the website. It basically puts 2 health on your units. Then if you've got 4 faith, then you get or is it 5 faith, you get an extra 1 buff, and then if you've got 6 faith, you get the permanent buff to melee and range 2. By the way, that includes your warlord, so your warlord getting that permanent buff. Absolutely broken for 2 energy. Yes, you've got to accumulate the faith, but still. Next up, we got Miraculous Feat. I think Miraculous Feat, even though Humanity Shield didn't quite make it, I think Miraculous Feat's better. You can put this on your warlord or your troops, so your warlord can go invulnerable. Plus, you've got a warlord that can pray, which Space Marines don't have, which means you then get a guaranteed faith point. You can put it on a vanguard unit, having invulnerable vanguards, which allows you to then build a board, which are kind of also invulnerable because they can just hide. Well, they're not quite invulnerable because they can be hurt by spells, but your opponent can't trade with them, is what I mean. So this just enables some like absolutely broken turns, and I think Miraculous Feat deserves to be on this list. Now, one that's quite unique, but does deserve to be on this list, is the Relic of St. Catherine, because the Relic of St. Catherine, basically you can't play this faction without this card. Now, I can't think of many cards where I'd be saying, look, Encircle the Prey is very good, but I wouldn't say you can't play Tyranids without it. And the same for most of the cards on this list. Like Relic of St. Catherine, you literally should not be playing the deck without 2 copies of this in it, and for that reason, it's got to be OP. It enables the entire mechanic of the faction, which is around faith. There's no other way to get faith consistently. It's not a good, well-designed mechanic for that reason, but the Relic of St. Catherine is what's saving it. And last but not least, I've got Junith on this list, because Junith is just, right now, she's got the most, like, probably broken in terms of, like, the value of a warlord power in the game. She can heal herself, she can heal troops, but most importantly, once that faith is up, which the Relic's going to kind of give you, you can essentially just put out 2 sisters a turn, and putting out 6 health worth of troops per turn for a warlord talent is just so overpowered. Alright, next up, let's talk about the Orkz. Now, the Orkz, I'm going with the Warbiker. I think this flanker is just unbelievable. The Warbiker is one of the best cards in the game. You know, for only 3 energy, you're having... It's a 4 melee flanker. Now, this is often better than 4 because we've got cards like Makari that can make it 5. You can use Gazgul's ability to make it 5 or even 6 with Makari. Same with Grupp draws it from his ability, it becomes 5, 6 with Makari. So the Warbiker is ridiculous, and then when you add the fact that it's got fast, which means that it can go face, a la kind of Leroy Jenkins for any previous Hearthstone players, like the Warbiker is absolutely phenomenal, and yeah, just an absolutely gold standard when it comes to kind of flankers. And speaking of gold standard, got to talk about Makari. Now, Makari is my favourite card in the game, I think. I hope this card never gets nerfed. It's just so enabling of the faction. It kind of, for me, characterises the faction. It's like, I actually feel like if Makari got nerfed, I'd just... I don't know. That is just one thing I just dread happening, but it's just so good. It's so good. They tried to nerf it a little bit by saying it now costs 2 more when it returns to your hand, but it's for that turn. But it's just so good, Makari. Giving that +1 buff, it's just like permanent chip damage and can't be destroyed. Absolutely love it. We have also got the Orc Knob, because Orc Knob basically gives flanks to the rest of your troops. And it is troops, not infantry, right? So tanks can get that. It's a good body itself and a good flanker in itself. It's a win-win situation. Superb, really powerful. Get Makari as your first legendary, you get the Orc Knob as your second one. So I think for the Orcs, they're the 3 for me that I would kind of want to highlight as the most OP. Yes, they've got other cards like you know, really good removal and no mucking about, and Will of Gork, but I think these are like the key ones that you just can't leave home without, really. Alright, now let's talk about Tau. Emergency Dispensation is arguably the best card in the game. It's certainly one of them. Being able to choose a troop from your deck, so it'll show you 3 cards in your deck and you pick one and it costs 3 less. Why is that so powerful? Well, it's the tempo cheat, isn't it? So if you play that on E3, that means that on E4 you can potentially play something that costs 7. Like, that's going to be really difficult for your opponent to recover from, the tempo advantage that you're going to get from that. So one of the best tempo cheats in the game, and tempo cheats are what CCGs are all about. The Greater Good is also excellent. It's very similar to Miraculous Feat, and you know, you can put this on your Warlord. As long as you don't play other Vanguards, your troops, you can then build a board of troops because your opponent can't touch them. And even if they hit your Warlord has got like armor 3, so it's not going to take that much damage. It's a really, really solid and very, very strong card. Speaking of which, I think Longstrike has to make this list as well, even though Longstrike has recently got nerfed. It's such a 2-for-1, right? Like coming on, Markolighting a unit, and then basically giving Marklight so that one unit gets destroyed, and then attacking with long range on another unit, meaning that you basically kill 2 units guaranteed with Long Strike, and it can just take out all of the enemy big stuff. So it's super powerful, really, really strong card. I think when it comes to the Genestealers, the Perfect Ambush has got to be mentioned. I think for just 1 energy, giving invulnerable to a friendly troop, you can do the same. You can put it on a Vanguard unit, but you can put this on things like the Saboteur. You can put it on things like the Icon Bearer, so you can just keep on making Day of Ascension approaches. It's just so goddamn good. This card is so powerful. I absolutely love it. And just super cheap, and it's a spell, so it can enable things like sabotage, triggers, etc. Speaking of Saboteur, this card is probably I think it's the best card in the Genestealer faction. It's so OP. The fact that it's got stealth and blast 4 in itself is amazing. Then you start to add the artifice deploy concealed explosives, and you realize like some of the combos that you can pull off with this are just insanely good. Backstabbing your own things for your own concealed explosives for free AoE, playing it with the Neophyte Leader so that all of the explosives get buffs, and playing it with a Neophyte Infinite, Day of Ascension approaches, so that every concealed explosive that comes out triggers 1 ping damage. There's just so many combos that you can do with it. It's just brilliant. It's a real combo enabler in the faction. Super powerful card. And I suppose you've got to mention Magus as well, right? Like, Magus is super good because Magus serves 2... I mean, yes, he draws you a card, but the real thing that makes him OP, there's really 2 things that make him OP. The first thing is obviously discounting a card. So everything we said about emergency dispensation from the tower, we can say the same for this. You know, that we can play it, and then the next turn we get to play a card that cheats its tempo. So, you know, if it's E4 next, for example, we can play an E5 card. So that is very broken because, again, mana cheating is a powerful way to get an advantage in the game. The other thing that makes it broken is it being able to adapt to the stage of the game. So, like, if you get to the late game with Magus, that's fine. We'll just keep choosing. For only 2 energy in the late game, we get to just choose, and we just pick the biggest unit, right? So, like, we never run out of value with Magus. He's a super powerful card. Now, when it comes to the Eldar, or the Eldari, I really think there's just 2 cards for me. I think the Howling Banshee comes very close to being OP, but I think these are the 2 right now that are making the faction, making and breaking it. The Reclaim the Stars is just, it's the main tempo cheat again in the faction. Yes, you've got to build up to it to get the payoff, but when you go off with this, boy do you go off. You know, being able to draw 5 cards into hand, usually you can play like at least 4 of them pretty much instantly with the 5 cost reduction. That is a massive mana cheat. I mean, think about that, guys. Think about playing like 5 cards that cost 5 energy. Like, yes, you paid 7 for Reclaim the Stars, but then you got to play 25 energy worth of cards. Like, so the swing that you get from this is just absolutely brilliant, and it just feels really good fun as well, playing it in like an Anvia deck where you can kind of keep switching out your hand and get it all right. But the power, there's no doubt about it, it's OP. Wailing Doom OP as well. I mean, being able to have reach from hand is very powerful. The Orkz, we already talked about things like the Warbiker and Makari being super powerful for that reason. And I think Wailing Doom is the same. It's even more so. It doesn't care about vanguards. It's a spell. It's just 8 straight damage to face. Obviously, if you've got the 2 energy, you can use it for removal with essentially a AoE 4 blast radius. It can take out stealth units as well. But the main use for the Wailing Doom is the finisher. This card will have won more Eldar games than anything. Now, next up, I'm going to talk about the new faction, the Astra Militarum. I think the Siege Warfare deserves a mention because you can build your deck in a way that you can really abuse Siege Warfare. Siege Warfare can also be cheated out. You can get this early. Things like the Astropath being able to get this played on E8 instead of E10. And when you actually play like double Baneblade, double Rogue Dawn as your only tanks, for example, the value that you're getting out of Siege Warfare is just absolutely insane. And often your opponent just can't deal with it. Orkz can play something like Will of Gork to counter it, but there are very, very few answers to, you know, a Baneblade and a Rogue Dawn coming down in the same turn. So I think for that reason, Siege Warfare should be mentioned as an OP card because it can create those overpowering situations that your opponent can't deal with. Now, next up, I'm going to talk about the Cadian Standard Bearer. The main reason why this makes the list is if you look at the statistics that you get from this card for 4 energy, there's nothing like it in the game. You actually get 8 health worth of bodies for 4 energy. You get the 5 from this and 3 from the Shock Trooper. Now, I think the next closest thing to that in the 4-drop slot is the Venom Throw from Tyranids, which is 6 health. So 8 health across 2 bodies is just phenomenal. One of them is Vanguard. This then has an extra ability that you can use which buffs your Warlord. It's superb. Like, the value packed into this is just phenomenal, and it really carries you into the mid game very well. Next up, we got the Faeburn Vanquisher. This card is insane again. You've seen a similar theme hopefully here, which is the ability to cheat mana, right? The Faeburn, again, yes, you can play it the same turn as the unit that you discount to just kind of go wide and play out the board, but the best way to use Faeburn often is to just make a more expensive unit cost less. If you make your Lehman Rush cost 6 instead of 7, you know, you're going to be able to play out that already big powerful unit a turn earlier, and that's probably going to overwhelm your opponent. Faeburn is very, very powerful. So I think for me, from the Astra Militarum, they are the kind of 3 cards that I would pull out as OP. So there we go, guys. Overall, I don't even know how many that was, but they are the cards that I feel are like super OP right now. If you're kind of trying to figure out your favorite factions and what cards to collect, then this should be a good guide. But let me know what you think. Are there any that I missed, any that you disagree with? Let me know in the comments. It should be a fun conversation. If you enjoyed this, let me know. Please hit that like button, give us a thumbs up, and of course subscribe for more Warpforge content.